Hi everyone, I'm Maria from Creative Grids, and today I want to talk to you about this non-slip 45 and 90 degree triangle ruler. With this one tool I can cut both half square and quarter square triangles. It has our signature grip, it has our black and white markings so it's easy to see on all different colors of fabric. And there's even a QR code printed right on the tool so that you can scan that to go to more info about the ruler and see a video. So let's take a look at how this works. So first, a little explanation about half square versus quarter square triangles. Typically you would take a square, cut it in half, and you've got two half square triangles. Or you would take that same square and cut it in half twice to give you 4 quarter square triangles. So that terminology comes from that simple cutting of a square. In the half square triangles, when you cut it, this is going to be your biased edge. And these are going to have your straight of grain. When you cut a quarter square, you're going to have biased edge along the 2 short sides, and your straight edge is going to be the straight of grain. So you want to keep that in mind when you're deciding whether or not you're going to use half square or quarter square triangles. So when you get your package home, you're obviously going to get the ruler, and it comes with an insert. And when I take this off, I can see the item number, the QR code, and if you scan that, you're going to have quick access to the video on our website. And then you can also see other information with the ruler there. When I open this up, here's the start of your basic instructions. It tells you about the ruler, the different cutting techniques, the sizes, instructions, tips, and all of that. You're going to want to use the 45-degree side to cut half square triangles that finish from as small as ½ inch up to 5 inches. This is clearly marked with a picture of a half square triangle. Look at this icon here on the ruler. It says half square triangle. There's a picture of one, and all of these words and numbers are right side up when I'm looking at that icon. For this instance, I want half square triangles that finish to 4 inches like the quilt that's behind me. I'm going to start with a 4.5 inch strip. 2 of them, in fact. I've got gray and white for my background, and I'm going to line them up right sides together. Why 4.5 inches? The instructions tell me to add ½ inch to the height of my chosen triangle. So I want a 4-inch triangle. This automatically adds that ½ inch. Look at the grid on my mat here. I've got 4.5 inches, and it's lining up with the dotted line and with the solid line for the 4-inch. So I'm going to take my Creative Grid rotary cutter, which I love, and simply slice. And I've got a pair of triangles already laid right side together, ready to sew. To do the next one, I'm just going to turn it around. Line that 4-inch up on the top up here, dotted line down here, and keep cutting. I'm going to keep going until I've got the number of triangles that I want, or until my strip runs out. And I can get about 14 of these pairs out of 2 strips of fabric 4.5 inches wide by the width of fabric, which is around 40 inches. You're going to take these to your sewing machine and chain piece, which is basically just feeding them in one right after the other. So you end up with this long line of sewn triangles. They were already paired right sides together, so all I had to do was pick up the pile and go stitch. I'm going to cut those apart. I'm going to press towards the colored side or the dark side, or maybe press them open. Sometimes I like to press them open. And there are my 4.5 inch squares. And here's some green, some more gray, some more pink, etc. So if I wanted to make another one of these quilts, I've got my squares all set and ready to go. You're going to use the 90-degree side to cut quarter square triangles that finish from ½ inch up to 5 inches. For today, I want a block that matches my half square triangle blocks that I just finished. The example in the instructions shows a 2.5-inch strip to make a 4-inch finished block. And that wording is all right in here. You're going to need 4 90-degree triangles, sew them together to make a block that looks like this. I'm going to use the 4-inch line on my tool. I've got my gray and my white right sides together again so that they're paired up and ready to stitch. There's that 4-inch line. Let's move my block out of the way. And I don't know if you can see it, but there's a tiny little dotted line across the top that knocks off that extra little bit in that triangle that we don't need in the seam allowance. I'll take my creative grid cutter, cut up one side and carefully down the other. This becomes scrap. There is two of my 4 triangles to make my block. I'm going to turn the tool 180 degrees, line up those same markings, the 4-inch line and the dotted line at the top, and cut again. And I'm going to keep going until my strip runs out. And it's just a coincidence, but just like the 4.5-inch strips, I can get 14 pairs like this out of one strip of fabric that's that 40-inch by 2.5 inches. Now I'm going to turn them so they're all facing the same way. And I'm going to take them to the sewing machine and stitch down this short side. And when I open them up and put them together, I will get a block that looks just like this. You want to be sure you use that same side to stitch every time so that you get a mirror image in your block. So at the very end of your instructions, there's a great little tip about tube sewing. So if you don't know what tube sewing is, it's a matter of taking 2 strips of fabric and sewing down the long sides to hold them all together. I'm going to cut some triangles to make another 1/4 square triangle block. I used a 4.5-inch strip because I had it made already and because I was curious how the process would work. So I'm lining up that 4-inch line again on my strip. Take my cutter. And there's that click to let me know the blade is safe. I'm going to turn my tool around again and cut it again. I'm going to take my little seam ripper and just pop the threads out here. Now I have friends who would just give this a tug and it would pop apart, but I like to use kind of a small seam, so I like to take the seam ripper to loosen that thread so I don't distort my triangle. And look at that, I have half of the work of my block done, just like that. That tube sewing lets you sew straight lines and lets you cut those parts when they're already half put together. So here's my 1/4 square triangle block. I'm going to press these, sew them back together, and make another one just like that. So that's a look at our multi-sized 45 and 90 degree triangle ruler designed by Rachel Cross. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like us on Facebook. And action! She'd go. Right there. You can hear me crunch on my cough drop. So now let's cut some parts. That's not going to work so good.